Welcome, everyone, to the Viva Connections SharePoint Framework Biweekly Sync. I'm your host, Hugo Bernier, and today we have a lot of amazing things to discuss on our agenda. We'll talk about our latest updates on the SharePoint Framework. We'll talk about our community project updates, and then we'll have picture time with our Together mode. So get your camera ready for cool pictures. You can actually have proof that you are here. And then we have 3 amazing demos with Nishkalank Bezawada, Martin Lingstuyl, and Steve Corey. Sorry. See, I messed up Steve's name. And by the way, Nishkalank and Steve, it's their first time presenting today. So we expect you, everyone, to give them a warm welcome and to give them a awesome community support. We have lots of resources available for you. The first one is our Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community videos, so you can subscribe to stay up to date. We have our LinkedIn group for discussions. Feel free to join our group at aka.ms/community/li. And then we have a lot of open source initiatives, sample galleries that are available to you, as well as all the resources all in one place at aka.ms/community/home. And if you want to stay up to date, we have our Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community calls. So we have the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform weekly call with Microsoft speakers. We have our Power Platform monthly call and our Office Add-in monthly calls. We have also, of course, the calls that we're on now, Viva Connections SharePoint Framework, and the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community bi-weekly call, which can switch place every other week. And our Microsoft 365 Power Platform weekly call coming up on the 12th of September. We'll have the latest news from Microsoft Engineering, and we'll have Yuri, and we'll talk about the Doc Assistant. We'll have Dan, and we'll talk about integrating OpenAI communication and organizational data features into line of business applications. And we'll have Alan and Nate, who will talk about automating business processes with custom Power Automate flows in list templates. And if you'd like to present on some of these community calls, feel free to do so. You can actually reach out at aka.ms/community/request/demo, and we'd love to hear what you have to talk about. Again, this is your opportunity to showcase all the cool stuff you've been working on, and we welcome new speakers. We're always happy to have people share their awesome samples. Now, if you don't know how to share samples, you have some resources available to you. And David, you want to talk about that?
Yes, it's actually David, Hugo, so if you could just prefer that. Yes, everybody. So you want to show off the amazing samples that you've been creating, and we want to help you do that. Sharing is Caring is a program that provides hands-on guidance. What does that mean? It means we're going to join a Teams call, and we're going to walk you through together, hands-on, how to do an actual pull request in the GitHub. So you don't have to worry about what those terms mean, like pull request and raw and blame and commit. We'll explain it all to you, and we'll do it together, and you'll walk out feeling completely confident to submit your own sample. Now, once you have submitted your sample, we want to recognize you for the amazing work that you're doing, in addition to a number of other ways in which you can contribute, like demoing on the call today. So our recognition program is in place. We've got some fun new thematic badges like the PSL Pumpkin Spice Latte Commits coming soon, along with the new framework and core SDK, and a number of other fun thematic things that we're going to be doing for the end of the year. So no cost at all, aka.ms/community/recognition. Go opt in. We're using MailChimp to be able to manage all that, so you can update your GitHub profile if you need to, and we will get those badges sent out soon for the last month. So please definitely go take a look. Hugo, back to you.
Thank you. And I love seeing people sharing their badges on LinkedIn and Twitter when they get their badges. Thank you for doing that. It's awesome. All right, so let's talk about SharePoint Framework. Let's talk about the latest updates from Microsoft Engineering. And to talk about that, we have Vesa.
Excellent. So first of all, SharePoint Framework release candidate is out for 1.18 version. 1.18 GA will happen within any given day, so within upcoming days or weeks. Not going to give you an exact date yet because, you know, it might be shifting, but it's happening relatively soon. Release candidate 18 is already super close. It's called release candidate for a reason. Let's go to the following slide. The key changes in 1.18, we talked about this one already in the past as well. It is focusing more UX perspective, especially in the Viva Connection side. So you're able to build more dynamic Viva Connection cards and experiences in the card side as well. So a lot of more flexibility in there. Let's go to the following slide. Quick update on the growth. It's actually phenomenal. The growth is actually accelerating, which is a bit of a surprise, but it's amazing that we are seeing more and more functionalities being built across the Microsoft 365, not only on SharePoint, related on SPFx. Let's go to the following slide. 1.18, as mentioned, coming relatively soon in September 2023. New templates just from Viva Connection for UI updates, some other API adjustments. The new thing, which we haven't talked about previously, is the Node.js 18 support, which is coming as part of this release as well. Now, kind of a related features, not related on SPFx, but related on this concept, Viva Connection Advanced Card Designer, and then pod-powered Viva Connection ACES is coming out as well. Now, they're not part of the SharePoint framework because SharePoint framework is the client-side UX layer, but they're kind of part of the things what the similar team or same team is doing. Now, let's go to the following slide. Just a quick recap in here as well. So we did announce that announcement is coming. Announcement for Viva Connection is coming quite soon. We are prepping right now the material and training and documentation for it. That's a really cool capability for Viva Connection. And also, just a reminder, on summer we announced the multiple Viva Connection experiences in Teams. And what it means is that you can actually have multiple Viva Connection experience dashboards and experiences per divisions or organization structure. And that's a really great feature as well. Now, as part of the 1.18, if you go to the following slide, we start going to the journey of getting more and more closer on something what we promised that will happen within a SharePoint UX layer. So we're looking into modernizing the SharePoint UX layer, and of course the extensibility model in the new. Is it then modern? Don't quote me on that. SharePoint will be one SharePoint framework as well. So we're able to start building more and cool capabilities there. That was something what we announced in Las Vegas earlier this year. That's it from my side. Let's move on to project updates.
Thank you. So here's the latest from the different open source projects that we have. And to start, we have PnPjs with Julie.
Yeah, thank you, Hugo. Nice job so far today. We had moved our version. Whoa, that was weird. We had moved our version 3.18 release out to September 11th. So we were skipping our August release. I have a feeling we'll also be skipping the September release. What we're doing is just doing doc updates because we have no actual code changes to the library. We are, as a team, working very hard on version 4. If you are interested in what's going on with version 4, check out that issue 2678, which links to the project planning board. So you can see all the ideas. We do update that pretty regularly. So everything that we're thinking about or working on is in there. There's also a version 4 branch, and the changelog is up to date. So if you're looking to see what has actually happened at a more micro level, you can check out the changelog in there and see what's going on. One of the open questions we have as a team is about the potential for deprecating the query extension. So if you go to that link there, you can check out what queryable extensions are, and give us your feedback on whether you use this feature and want it to stay. We haven't seen any telemetry that anyone is using it, and it does add something to every call to be able to support it. So we think it's probably best if we drop it. Don't forget that if there is a PR, we have nightly builds. The V3 nightly build is there. There hasn't been any for a while, so that V3 nightly build is actually the same as the current released version. And so, yeah. Follow us as always. LinkedIn, we're doing a lot more there. Microsoft 365 platform community, and also on Twitter, now known as X. I'm not a fan. Move on. Back to you, Hugo. Thanks.
Thank you. And let's pass it to Gary to talk about the CLI for Microsoft 365. Gary?
Thanks, Hugo. So this month was the release of version 6.11 for CLI for Microsoft 365. In there, we have Power Apps commands for managing user permissions around an app. We have some CLI commands for just setting some of the kind of personalizations, preferences options. We've got updates for SharePoint Framework and SharePoint Online. SharePoint Framework, so you can upgrade your projects to the latest beta version, the release candidate. was mentioned earlier, and also a new command that will enable you to easily add a GitHub workflow to your project as well. So if you're using GitHub for CI/CD, that command is for you. And we've also enhanced our file copy command, which now has an option for resetting the author and created properties when you actually copy that file. It's coming up at the end of September. We also have our first office hours call, which is going to take place on Discord. So if you are a member of our Discord server, you can go on there and see the event and register your interest. If you are not a member and you're interested in having a discussion about CLI for Microsoft 365, talk to the maintainers, come with your questions or any issues that you've got, then please join our Discord server and use the short link aka.ms/CLI-M365/Discord. So back to 6.11. If you want to try it out, use the latest tags from NPM and for Docker. And also an early warning that we have our V7 beta out. So you can use the 7 tag to get that from NPM, which we're looking to release at the end of the month. So if you're interested to see that your scripts are still working and just test them, please let us know if there's any issues so that we can rectify them before we actually release. With that, Hugo, to the next slide, please. New release of Microsoft 365 Developer Proxy, version 0.11.1. Smaller update this month. So we've got some improvements to the select guidance plugin around performance, some improvements to error handling, and some general bug fixes. But what is coming next month is already quite a substantial release. So we have support for mocking nth requests. So this might be like the second or third call that you make to the graph. Response delays, more enhancements for graph batch responses, blocking unmocked requests, and custom rate limiting behaviors. And this all going to come at the end of the month with our 0.12 release. So if that interests you, go along to aka.ms/m365/proxy and you'll find all the information about this. Hugo, back to you.
Thank you. And here to talk about the reusable SPFx controls, we have Alex, who's also known as Adam.
Thank you, Hugo. So not many updates. We're still on 3.15 for React controls and 3.14 for React property controls. The main thing, we currently have v4 beta with the PnPjs v3 support. So please, if you have time, test this new beta version and submit any bugs if you have any. It will be really beneficial for the future work on this release. Back to you, Hugo.
Thank you. And let's pass it back to Vesa to talk about Viva Connections Toolkit for Visual Studio Code.
Actually,
no.
I guess.
Yeah, Adam.
Yeah. Adam, also known as
we
Alex.
can pass it also to Gary, or maybe Hugo or David, or wait. Adam.
Whoever wants to speak about it.
Yeah, everyone can speak about it because it's so cool. Yeah, it's the Viva Connections Toolkit. It's a Visual Studio Code extension that will boost your productivity in SPFx area and ACE area. It's created by the community together with Microsoft, and we just released, I hope, last beta pre-release 1.1.3. It's the last pre-release, I hope, before our next major V2. In this pre-release, we added 2 major features. One is generating a CI/CD pipeline for SPFx projects for GitHub using CLI for Microsoft 365 GitHub Actions. This is really cool. If you have no experience in YAML, this will do all the things for you when it comes for generating the pipeline. If you want to register and add the secrets to the GitHub, that's still on you, but we are planning to also improve this in the next major release. And we also added the last feature on our roadmap, which is granting project permissions. So if there are any API permissions your SPFx needs to have, you don't need to now package, deploy, go to the SharePoint admin and consent. Just click on this one action in the VS Code extension, and that's it. So we are prepping, creating release posts, docs, and marketing content, and I hope we will release the V2 in a couple of 2 or 3 weeks, so fingers crossed. And we are already working and thinking about the V3, so be sure to check out the repo and provide feedback if you have something you would like to improve your work with SPFx. And be sure to give it a try. Happy coding, everybody. Back to you, Hugo.
Thank you. And to talk about the PnP Modern Search is me, also known as David. Let's talk about the modern search experience. We have amazing web parts that you can use to extend your search experience. We have a version 4.9.3 that was released this Wednesday. And so what we've done is we've removed some App Insights login, which was really not in use. And we have all the release notes available at the link in the slides. Now, on the SPFx samples area, we have, again, a repository of samples that you can use. You can go at ak.ms/spfx-webparts, and it now includes web parts as well as extensions. We have 3 new samples, one which is the subscription manager by Nishkalank Bezawada, who will be presenting today on a different solution. We have an advanced web part by Sven, who did I say advanced iframe? So the advanced iframe actually allows you to embed on full width section. It allows you to actually set the aspect ratio, and it will maintain that aspect ratio. You can actually make sure that your web part can only be embedded where you have allow external iframes in the HTML field security, and it'll do all the automatic resizing. But wait, if you order now, you can also pass in things like color codes from the current color scheme, query string parameters, information about the logged in user, and the current page in site. And then we have the download multiple documents by Ramin Ahmadi, which is also a new web part. And Ramin shows how to actually use the JS zip add-in to be able to actually combine a whole bunch of documents in a web part and then download it as a single zip. So thank you, everyone, for all your contributions. If you are interested in submitting samples, again, please don't hesitate. You can do a pull request on any of our SPFX web part or extension repositories. And if you need help, we can help you with the sharing and scaring session. Now, there's another repository we use for samples, which is the Adaptive Card extensions. And to talk about it, we have our friend Derek.
Hello, Hugo. Thank you. So we've got a repository for our adaptive card extensions. Unfortunately, we don't have any new samples this time. So if you are currently working on any ACEs and you want to share them with the community, please submit them and we will get those approved as soon as we possibly can, because we love new samples. Thanks, Hugo.
Awesome. Thank you. And now here's my favorite part of the day, where we have the picture time. Turn on your camera if you feel up to it. We'll all do a group photo together, and Vesa's going to be sharing his screen and capturing. Derek is already dancing. That's awesome.
That's Alex, or is it Adam? Just checking. No, just. No,
I think
this is gonna stick.
I think Derek's gonna earn the Dancing Derek name now, right? It just works.
Yeah. I need to get the monkey.
It's almost
as
coffee
well,
time, so.
because I can say, oh, there's monkey.
And monkeys
Get
and
my
bears.
monkey here. Oh, there we go. Monkey.
Look at that. That's awesome.
So actually, let me put the recording on and let's do some hand waving. Yay!
Oh, we got a dino too.
We have a dino there. Excellent.
Oh, and a little unicorn.
That's
Wow, we are
There's a lot of
quite
stuff.
quite the zoo.
Really
Hey, it is an inclusive community.
Excellent. Let's get back on the slides and the real demos of today and the stars of today. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you. And today we have, again, 3 awesome demos. The first demo is by Nishkalank Bezawada, and I believe it is Nishkalank's first time presenting. So please, everyone, give him a warm welcome. Nishkalank, when you're ready, share your screen. We can see it. Beautiful. And we can hear you.
Absolutely. Fine. Thank you, Hugo. Thanks, everyone. Harnessing a Power Automate flow dashboard is an SPFX solution that I'll be demonstrating today. This web part performs operations and shows a list of Power Automate flows from different environments. So let me start with a brief introduction about myself. I am Nishkalank Bezawada. also known as Nish, working as a senior M365 technical specialist at TietoEvry Create in Stockholm, Sweden. I have been working on SharePoint since last 12 years, and I'm also an active PnP community contributor since October 2022. So far, I've been contributing to SPFx web parts, SPFx React controls, PnP PowerShell, and PnP script samples. Till now, I have received 3 badges from the community, and many more is expected to come. Well, you can also reach me on GitHub, LinkedIn, and I'm pretty much active on Discord server too. So the agenda for today, I have therefore separated the presentation into 3 parts as we go. What does this web part do? Why this web part? And how it is implemented with a brief demo. So actually, what does this web part do? This web part displays the Power Automate flows from different environments as shown here in the slide. It also shows the run history of the selected flows. And additionally, depending upon the flow state, let's assume if a flow is stopped or suspended, the dashboard offers the option to restart the flow right from the web part itself. So let's go on the presentation's next section, why this web part. To be completely honest, lazy developers like me who don't want to spend much time navigating to Power Automate's center and to monitor the flows, yeah, they definitely need this web part. So here I'm obviously joking here, but the idea came up when I was working alone supporting an application during the summer. And when I saw that few of the flows have been in suspended state, all I wanted to do is to build an automation to restart the flows which are in stopped or suspended state. Later, I had this idea, why not make a web part? So that even my counterpart could restart the flow from the web part itself. I felt it was cool that way. So yes, having said this was one of the reasons, but other justifications are as follows. It gives the ability to monitor all the flows from the web part. It is also helpful to have a sample of how to use flows in a web part using SPFx. So let me quickly show you the web part itself now. Okay, I am just navigating to the site. This is the one. Since I have already configured the web part in my site, I will just quickly edit this web part to show you the web part properties. So currently I have only one environment in my tenant, but that is not the case for everyone. There may be more than one, 2, 3, 4 environments available for the others. So I made this drop-down multi-select after realizing this, allowing the user to view flows from various environments all at once. We published the page, and here you go. The environments are sent as a web part property to the component, in which in turn is grouped by environments, and furthermore the flows from the individual environment. So here I have only one environment, which you can see the name here, and there are 4 flows in my environment. The columns of the dashboard are display name, flow author, flow name, status, run, and the run history. The flow display name is made sortable here in this web part. The second part here is which I wanted to talk is the restarting. We have this operation to restart the flow from the web part itself. So if the flow is either in stopped or suspended state, but here in this case it is all started. So let me just go quickly and stop a couple of flows here just to see how it looks. Let me stop this, turn off, and then this. Come back to the web part. As I said, if the flow is either stopped or suspended, the web part displays an additional link such as restart flow in the status column. When we click on the link, the web part makes an API call to resume the flow, and the parameters which are sent are the environment and the flow name. So here I just received a response saying 200, which means the flow has been started. So let me just go quickly to the Power Automate center and give it a quick refresh. Just to see that, okay, 19 seconds ago, this flow has been modified and it's started. Coming back to this dashboard, I'll just give you a refresh to the dashboard or web part. I can see that it's been started and one flow is not restarted. So yes, and the other column which I wanted to talk here is the column run history. So here we have a column run history, and which displays the specific flows run history. So here, if I just click on get flow run history, uh, uh, a panel will be opened with all the run history of the selected flow. So I have run ID, the start and end time, the status, and the flow trigger itself. So here I'm getting all these properties, so which we can actually make use of, according to the our own needs. The web part also has a sync button. When clicked, it allows us to update the list of the flows. So you can see it here. All right, so let me go back to the presentation again. Yes, how about time for a few code samples? All right, upon initializing the web part, I am retrieving the environments as seen here. The method get environments in flow service is called, which I obtain all the environments using this API, which is highlighted. We get as an array of environments, and environment interface contains name, location, type, and properties here. Okay, and then on the component did mount, we fetch the flows by calling the load flow details method, which in turn looks up for each environment. It fetches the flows and individual flow via get flows and get flow methods respectively. Right. The column rendering of the web part is customized depending upon two fields. One is flow status and other is run history. The flow status is stopped. If the flow status is stopped or suspended, I'm changing the color to red and showing a link which is restart the flow as highlighted here. For flow run history, I'm again adding a link which fetches the run history of the selected flow itself. This is the API which is used to get flow run history, and this is the code snippet to restart the flow. This sample is available in the gallery of PnP web part samples and can be improved in any way that is appropriate for your own need. As I said earlier, this is a very apt sample to work on flows using SPFx. All right, with this, I conclude my first ever demo in the community. I thank Vesa, David, Hugo, and Luigi for giving me this opportunity. A special thanks to Giacomo Pogioni, Joel Rodriguez, Adam Wojcik, and Pascal Sauk, Nazar Mahmoudi from TietoEvry for always supporting me. Finally, thanks to the community. I say the community has given us many things. Now it's my time to give the community back. This is Nishkalank giving back the mic to Hugo. Thank you.
Thank you. That was fantastic. Everyone, please give Nishkalank a warm hand. It was his first call, again, his first demo, and what an awesome demo it is. You've actually given me some ideas for things that I should do to improve my Power Apps web part. And thank you, Stephanie, for coming on camera to applaud. That's awesome. All right, so now let's pass it to Martin, who will tell us how to properly pronounce his last name, as well as how to deploy an SPFx app with Azure DevOps pipelines. Martin, take over the screen, please.
Yes, so first question, can you see my screen?
We can see your screen and we can hear you.
Awesome, that's awesome. Okay, so a bit about myself. I am Martin Lingstuyl. That's very hard to pronounce for some people, but I'm a Microsoft MVP in the development category, Microsoft 365 development. I'm also a Microsoft 365 architect at a fantastic small company in the Netherlands called I4U Business Solutions. Well, these are my contact details. You can find my blog. I did a few posts a few weeks ago on how to automate SPFx solutions. Well, this is me showing how that can be done. So let's start. So this is literally happening to me all the time. You know, a project has been sold. SPFx is part of it, or any type of application, really. And I start by deploying that manually, you know, the first time, and then I have to change it, so I deploy it again. I postpone creating things like automation and unit tests all the way to the end, and that's really, really bad, you know. And then at the end of the project, the customer comes along with a lot of feedback, and time gets short, and then I don't have really have a lot of time for creating automation anymore. And that's just stupid, really, because automated deployment saves you a lot of time, a lot of hassle, because really there's a lot of work to do, a lot of small manual steps that you can save time and frustration for yourself. The more so if you have to deploy to multiple environments. So why not use automation? This call is about using Azure DevOps pipelines to do so. And there's a few things you need. You need a repository with an SPFx solution. You need a pipeline written in YAML, which is part of the same repository. And we need one or more Entra IDE apps to communicate with SharePoint. And of course, my favorite, we always use the CLI for Microsoft 365 to reach several objectives. So let's talk about how that works. This is what I've been doing all the time. So when code is pushed to the main branch of the repository, a pipeline will start and it will build the SPFx app. The pipeline will then run a deployment stage and publish the package to the app catalog of SharePoint. It will update the app on a site where the app has already been installed. And then the pipeline will pause for a second and wait for you to approve the deployment so that it can then run to production and do the same there. So this is a bit of how what I'm talking about today. Now, there are multiple ways to do this in Azure DevOps. And the first way is the classic release pipelines, which you can find in the DevOps portal under the tab Releases. And this actually, I've used this a long time. I've written a blog post on it. It's very nifty. It's multi-stage. It offers all kinds of approvals. There's only one big but. You cannot create them using YAML. So every time you need to go clickety-click to set one up, which is very boring. So there's a different way these days, since a few years, I think, so that you can create a build and deployment pipeline just in one pipeline, in one YAML file. And this is actually very nice as well. It also offers multi-stage pipelines. You can have a build stage. You can have specific types of deployment jobs as well. You can do everything in YAML, well, except the approvals. You need to configure that elsewhere. And it's very nice. So how can we do this? Well, the first thing, the hardest thing to do first is always authentication. So let's tackle that first. So this pipeline is going to run on a DevOps agent, which is a Microsoft hosted VM somewhere, which is going to be spun up somewhere in the cloud. So how can I take care that that VM will access not one, but even 2 or 3 SharePoint tenants and upload my SPFx package there? Well, the answer is, of course, we can use a Entra ID or Azure ID application registration with a self-signed certificate. So we create that. We need to give it a permission, sites.fullcontrol.all, app-only permissions, but I think you can also do this with sites.selected, so that you can give it less permissions, only on the app catalog and the sites that you want. We need to add our certificate to that Azure AD application, and then we can do all this using just a single PowerShell script. And this is what I use myself. It's a very short script. The first part is just creating the certificate, the self-signed certificate. This is, of course, it's on Windows. So if you're on Mac OS or something else, you can probably use OpenSSL or something else. But we're just creating a certificate and exporting it from the store, and then I have a PFX and a SIR file to use. And the next thing I use is the CLI for Microsoft 365 to create an application in the Entra ID tenant of the customer. So in this case, I'm calling it my CI/CD application. I'm assigning it the correct application permissions, as you can see, sites.fullcontrol.all. And I'm also connecting my certificate file, the public key, the SIR file, to it. I'm giving it a name. I'm saying it needs to be granted consent. And I can just run this one-liner if I have enough permissions, of course. And I do this twice. So in our scenario, we're using a acceptance tenant and a production tenant, which has two separate SharePoint environments, also two separate Entra ID tenants. So I need to create two apps and two certificates, and then write down the details. And this is what you will get, just a very simple application with nothing special, just a container for your permissions in the tenant that you're working with. So the next step is, once we've created the app registration, the certificate, we want these DevOps agent to be able to download the private key of the certificate so that it can use it. We want it to have access to the tenant ID and the app ID of the applications that we have just created, so that it can use this information to connect to SharePoint across the world. Okay, this is what we want to do. So to do that, we have to stuff the variables in DevOps library, which is a section of your DevOps project, which can contain variables and files. So for our purpose, I'm always creating variable groups, and the variable group can contain multiple variables. As you can see, I have one for acceptance and for production. The variables are the same, but with different values. So as you can see, I've got a few basic variables that can be used to connect to SharePoint. I'm using the certificate password, the app ID of the app registration, the SharePoint base URL, which is also important, which I'll explain in a moment, and the tenant ID. And the same works for the deployment production variable group. And then we've got a secure file section. There we can upload the private keys of the certificates that we have just created, the acceptance and production both in the same place. The next part, as we are already in the DevOps portal busy, so we can create some environments as well. We need to do that at the start. What are environments? It's not like you're connecting SharePoint or something here. An environment is really just a container to register your deployment logs. So, and an environment is also used for things like permissions and approvals. So it's just really very simple. You click the button new and you click through and you've got a new environment. And always, what I always do is on the production environment, I register a approval. And so that, otherwise my build pipeline will just build and deploy to acceptance and production at the same time, which is not what we would want. So that's step 3, that's creating environments. It's really a very small task, but it's very important. The next step is that we are going to write a pipeline definition. I'm using VS Code to build all my SPFx web parts, and in that VS Code, or in that workspace, in that VS Code folder, in that SPFx folder, I'll just add another file called Azure Pipelines.yaml, and now I can write my pipeline entirely here. Which is, if you know how it works, it's easy, but if you don't know how it works, I'll just show you in a minute. Let's check out how that works. So I've got a VS Code open here. And this is actually the solution from the screenshot, as you can see. And this is what this is really a simple build and deploy pipeline. It's a bit long, as you can see, and that is because it's doing a couple of things the same. It's deploying to acceptance and it's deploying to production. So we could improve this by using templates, but I've just kept it simple for now. The first thing that you do in a template is define, for example, the trigger. When is this pipeline going to run? And I want it to run when something is pushed to the main branch of my repository. I also want this to run on a Ubuntu image of the Microsoft hosted type. So not a Windows machine, but an Ubuntu machine, which is much faster because we're going to use a lot of npm commands. And then we're going to create a couple of stages. The first stage is, of course, very clear, it's the build stage, and the build stage can contain a few jobs. A job can contain a few steps, and then this is really the important part, what you would usually do on your own machine. These tasks say to the agent, please use node 16 for me, and now please install all the packages of the repository that are in the package.json file, the entire SharePoint framework package.json. And now please execute a gulp bundle and execute a gulp package solution. And this will result in a nice SPFx package in the folder structure on the build agent. The last two steps are really important. This is like what you're saying here is please copy that SPPKG and copy it to an artifact staging directory. And now please publish that artifact as a named artifact. And if you've done this right, you can download the SPPKG after every successful build and just do with it whatever you want. So that's the build pipeline. This is usually what we create. After this, the stage ends, and now the new stage starts. And this is the release to acceptance stage. And this stage has a condition. It will only run when build has succeeded. And now it starts to become interesting. You can see I'm referencing a variables group here, which is the variables group I've created before, the deployment acceptance group. And referencing this group here will help me to use all those variables that I've created there in my pipeline. I'm starting a job, and this is a specific type of job. It's called a deployment job, and the deployment job will target the acceptance environment, just like I've already created. And now there's some boilerplate here about a deployment strategy. There are multiple strategies that you can use. I'm just using the most simple version, which is a run once deployment. And there are a couple of build steps in that deployment, and this is the core part of it. It will first download a secure file. This is the certificate that we've uploaded to the secure file section, and it will again select Node. It will install the CLI for Microsoft 365 because that's the tool that we're going to use to deploy this app to the SharePoint tenant. And then the next step is just a script. It's a bash script, and as you can see, it's calling the Microsoft 365 CLI to log into the tenant using a certificate, and it's using the secure file path of the downloaded PFX file. And it's using the certificate password that's coming from my variable group. And it's using the app ID, and it's using the tenant ID. So now it's signed in, and now there's a very little step. It sets the base URL SharePoint. If you don't do this, you'll need to give the application a bit more permissions because the CLI for Microsoft 365 will try to discover your root site for you because it doesn't know. It will try to discover it, and it will use the graph to do this. So if you use this, you can just have the one permission that we've added earlier, the SharePoint sites full control all. If you don't use it, you'll have to add a specific graph permission to let it access your SharePoint environment and search for your what the actual URL is. That's a little hack that I usually do. So the next part is that we can add the SPPKG to the app catalog. It will override the existing app that's already there. It will deploy the app. The GUID that you see here is just the package ID or the package ID that's in the package. What is it? The ID of the solution, somewhere in your solution. And then it will upgrade, in my scenario, it will upgrade the app on a specific site that I've named here. And that's it, that's really it. And now it will just continue with the next stage, which is the production stage. And this will do exactly the same, but with a different deployment group and with a different certificate. And that's really it. So it's a bit long, but you can, of course, if you want, you can make it shorter. Just a little hint of how that could work. I've got a different file here, which is a pipeline that uses templates, and it calls a template with parameters. So it calls a release template, but each time with different parameters. This is really nice if you're really going to work with this and use that to deploy to multiple environments. Okay, so that's basically it. We've created a pipeline definition. The next step is that we need to create a pipeline based on this definition. And this is what you usually do in the DevOps portal. So you go to pipelines, you click new, you have to say where the file is that you've just created, and you can just create it and start it for the first time. You'll have to select existing Azure Pipelines YAML file and select the file that you've just created from your repo. And that's basically it. And then it's time to celebrate, because then you'll have a fantastic build pipeline with multiple stages and doing all kinds of things that you have to do yourself, which is super annoying otherwise. Click, 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 go, you know? So awesome thing. I hope you've got, I hope this helps you. If you want, you can just look up my blogs that I did on the subject. I've got one on the classic release pipelines and one on the modern version. And I've referenced some documentations as well. So that's it. Back to you, Hugo.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Martin. I would love to try to convince you to put that sample in the sample repository so people can find it a lot more easily. But fantastic. I will definitely borrow some of the elements you've showed here. Awesome. And our last but not least is Steve Corey, who's going to talk about confirming terms and conditions using SPFx extensions. And it's also Steve's first demo on this call. Steve, we're ready for you when you are.
Thanks,
All right,
Hugo.
we see your screen.
Hi, everyone. My name is Steve Corey.
Yeah, go ahead.
So my name is Steve Corey, also known as Steve Carey, because I'm a man of many names. But I am a lead consultant at Quisitive, a Microsoft partner. I've been working with SharePoint for about 20 years, starting with SharePoint Portal Server 2003, where I was creating web parts and connectors. Luckily, things have come a very long way since then. I've also got a background in networking and software development, and today you'll find me doing everything in SharePoint, from architecting solutions, leveraging existing PnP solutions, and doing my own SPFx development. So here you can see all the social platforms I'm on, which is also where I post SharePoint content, so definitely feel free to reach out. Today I'm demoing a solution that I made that forces users to acknowledge terms and conditions for a particular SharePoint site. Now, this use case could be external users who are accessing a specific SharePoint site in your environment, or it could just be for normal users. You know, maybe this could be something like an acceptable use policy. A lot of different situations could call for something like this. I'll walk you through the code so you understand how it all works, but first let's talk about what this thing does. So as I said, it forces a user to acknowledge terms and conditions. It blocks all access to that site until you do. It's created using a SharePoint framework extension. Specifically, it's an app customizer. So it'll execute not only on site pages, but also system pages like site contents and site settings. It's got auditing built in so that there's a history of when a user acknowledged them. It also satisfies the compliance department's requirement to be able to view those records if that time comes. Versioning is another cool feature of this, so that as the lawyers update terms and conditions that nobody really reads, it re-triggers the pop-up on the next page to force that user to re-acknowledge them. So with the overview out of the way, let's actually see how this thing works. So I'm on the Contoso site with this extension running. And if I refresh the page, you'll see this thing come up. Pretty simple, right? So once I acknowledge this pop-up down here at the bottom, then it goes away. And it doesn't come up again until those terms are updated. So that acknowledgement is actually saved over on this list here. So this is the user data list. This is one of the lists automatically provisioned on the site when this extension is added. Users don't ever need to see this list, but for the sake of the demo, let's just talk about it. I can see my own record here along with the version of the terms and conditions that I accepted. And if I delete this and just refresh the page, then you'll see it comes right back up. So this makes it very, very handy to tweak this thing, to debug this. So that's been a really nice thing. Let's see. So that does it for this user data list. Let's jump over to the terms and conditions list and see what we've got here. So as you see, I've got one entry with the terms, with the version number that you saw on that user data list. If the site owner wants to enforce an updated terms and conditions, they can just create a new list item and fill in the details here. Now notice that this is an enhanced rich text box, so you can just copy and paste formatted text right here. Very simple to understand for non-technical people. More than likely, this text is just going to come from an email or a document anyway, so copy and paste functionality works very well here. Now, the other option is the site owner could just edit this existing item. And if they did, they have two options. If they keep the version number the same, then only new users to this site would see those updated terms when they go to the site. Otherwise, if they increment the version number to like version 3 in this case, then all users would have to re-acknowledge. A lot of flexibility. So that's really it for this demo. So let's check out the code, all the juicy stuff. And we'll start with the terms dialog component, which is really what provides all this functionality. Right here at the bottom, you'll see the render method where I'm using the modal component from Fluent UI. Whether it needs to be displayed or not is just a state variable, making it easy to control. I'm also setting the isModeless property to false, so the user can't just click outside the box to dismiss it. They're going to have to acknowledge it. I also use the isDarkOverlay property to darken the background and make sure the modal stands out. The actual content being displayed is very minimal, since all we have to do is just display text and throw a button at the bottom. And that's evident here since we've really only got some divs and a primary button, also from Fluent UI. We're displaying the terms and conditions from the state, and the button text is coming from the props. When someone clicks on that button, then we go into the acceptance button click function, and that is right here. So what this thing does is it will just call save user acceptance to save that user record. And all that does is just use PnPjs to save the list item and that user data list. After that, then we're going to call, we're going to update state back here to hide the dialog. I put that set state call in the finally block just so that for any reason, if that save user acceptance call fails, then we're still going to hide that dialog, re-enabling the site. So really, that's all there is as far as writing our data to lists. But let's see how this data gets loaded in. So for that, we're going to start with a component will mount function. And what this does, the first thing it's going to do is load, or call our load user details function, which is here. So this will call get user email just above it. And that uses PnPjs to return the current user's email address where we just save it to state. After that, we're going to call load TNC data. And that is here. So this calls get terms list data, which you can see above. Here we're using PnPjs again. I heavily use this to get the terms and conditions from the list, grabbing only the most recent version according to the term version field on that list. If there's an issue getting that data, then we're returning it like a nulled out object so that the dialog doesn't come up. We throw that back into state down here, which triggers the component did update function to kick this all off now that we've got most of our data. So let's go check that function out. So here's component did update. And the first thing we do is make sure we've got the user list data, those acknowledgements. If not, and it's certainly if it's the first time we're running this component did update, then we're going to call load user list data. That is up here. There we go. Where in here, all we're really doing is making one PnPjs call to get those acknowledgements, just like we did with the terms and conditions data. We're just going to get the most recent copy of that and then return that. So that will bring us back down to here because we're going to update state with that acknowledgement, which will rerun component did update. And this time we skip this first part because we've already got that data. So then we just do some kind of safety checks, make sure we've got all of the data from both lists as well as from the user's profile. It then compares the version of that terms and condition that the user acknowledged to the most recent terms and conditions on the site. And if they haven't acknowledged this version, we set dialog visible to true in the state. And now that state is updated, it re-renders the component and makes the pop-up appear. So for the core functionality, that wraps it up. If we switch over to the entry point in this extension, you'll see how the component gets added to the page. Pretty much everything is in this render placeholders function. We're getting a reference to the bottom placeholder and then creating an instance of our custom component, passing in properties to control the button text, as well as the names of the lists we use to store data. Then we just add it to the bottom placeholder. So that's really it. This was a unique request that came to me. I've deployed this to multiple environments since initially creating it. One of the things I really like about this is I don't have to worry about calling specific REST endpoints using SP HTTP client because PnPjs just handles all that stuff, keeping my code clean, so I just deal with the functionality. Also, as you see on the left, I've been using the Viva Connections Toolkit for all my projects now, so I don't even have to type in the gulp commands. Life is sweet. But there's a lot of options on where to go next with something like this. You could adapt this code to work across an entire hub network if you wanted to. Just use a common set of lists that sit on the hub is how I would probably handle that. You could also tenant deploy this as well, but it really fits nicely into a single site scenario. So that's it for this demo. I hope you really enjoyed this and learned something new. Back to you, Hugo.
Well, thank you, Steve. This was awesome. Like the use of PnPjs in the Viva Connections Toolkit, by the way. I noticed that when you were doing the demo. All right, well, we had three awesome presenters, Nishkalank Bezawada, Martin Lingstuyl, and I'd like to apologize to Martin for mispronouncing his name. I take saying names properly very seriously. And Esteve Coroi for his demo as well. I'm just kidding. Steve Corey, thank you for your demo. Again,
okay, David, it goes well.
That's right. Nishkalank and Steve were presenting for the first time. So again, thanks to both of you for doing an awesome demo, and thanks for Martin. You're always welcome to come back. All right. So we have a Discord server. And if you actually know, first of all, we have our feedback. So if you want to rate the call, the content, and give us some input on how we can improve, please don't hesitate to follow this link here. And then we have a Discord server that you can join so we can have conversations, aka.ms/community/Discord. And finally, I'd like to thank everyone for attending the call. The recording will be available in 24 hours on the YouTube channel. You can follow us on Twitter at Microsoft 365 Dev and Microsoft M365 PnP. And our next Viva Connections SPFx call will be on September 21st. Our next Microsoft 365 and Power Platform call will be on September 14th. The recording will be available within 24 hours. Please, if you're in this call and you're trying to click on the recording, you will not be able to access it. But you can just wait 24 hours and it'll be available on YouTube. And that's it for us. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.